The moment she walked into the ring, you could feel the shift. Mercedes Moné isn't just another championship contender, she's rewriting the rules, holding belt after belt, setting records, traveling the world, claiming titles in places you didn't even know had women's championships. But with that meteoric rise comes one question: is this dominance sustainable, or is the plan backfiring before it even gets fully off the ground? Moné's most recent win adds another layer to her legend. She retained the Bastia Women's Championship by defeating Queen Maya, and yes, she got help from her partner, the Beast Mortos, spearing Maya, then letting her lock in the finishing move. That finish tells you almost everything you need to know. Moné isn't just collecting titles quietly. She's flaunting them, embracing a new breed villain energy. And with that helped finish, she's leaning into the role of the powerful heel champion who uses every tool to stay on top. And yet, it wasn't always calculated. On one level, it feels like a runaway train, piling up gold and exposure faster than most wrestlers get one big shot. At one point, she was reportedly asking for $25,000 per independent appearance. That kind of price tag raises eyebrows for some. It screams star power. For others, it signals overexposure and a risk of dilution. She's everywhere, holding championships across continents. With critics already wondering whether the moment is too big, too soon, consider this. She was just named #1 on the 2025 edition of Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Women's 250 list, with timeless Toni Storm right behind her. That says one thing loud and clear: in the wrestling world, Moné isn't a contender anymore. She's the baseline. Every up-and-comer is chasing her. Every match she has will be judged relative to her era-defining run. But with that status comes pressure, and that's where the story gets interesting. Because dominance on paper doesn't always translate into dominance in story. Moné's belt collector angle is bold, courageous. Even, she's taken titles from Italy to Poland, from Scotland to Austria, wrapped them around her waist, and turned her resume into a trophy wall. But what happens when the momentum plateaus? What happens when she's booked to defend one belt in one region while footage shows her hoisting a dozen at once? The line between unbeatable icon and jumping the shark is thinner than we like to admit. There's a mix of heat and hype right now. On crowd reaction alone, Moné is compelling. She has the look, the presence, and the confidence of someone who knows she should dominate. But dominance isn't just about wins. It's about story, about building heat, about giving challengers a credible shot. It's about making every title defense feel like the last line of defense for her empire. And in that respect, some critics argue the plan isn't quite fully baked yet. Her collection is certainly impressive, but is the storytelling keeping pace? That's where the suspense lies. One of the most fascinating layers is the global scale of this. Moné isn't just focused on one promotion, one region. She's conquered championships from AEW to Europe to Japan-aligned promotions. She's literally expanding her brand Moné, in a way few women in wrestling have ever attempted. That gives her a huge upside. It opens doors. It allows for fresh storylines, fresh challengers, major international angles. But it also means she has more moving parts: title defenses, travel, promos, media obligations, and a global audience watching. The bigger the stage, the harder it is to keep every piece tight. And that's where the conflict lies. Because even as fans cheer or jeer, and even as titles pile up, the question becomes, how many times can you defend 10 or 12 championships before the moment loses its weight? How many title wins are too many? Or is the too many narrative just a distraction created by those who don't understand wrestling's biggest rule: hot momentum must be cashed in, or it loses value. Moné isn't playing safe. She's not waiting for time to prove her. She's acting like the standard setter right now. Whether that pays off depends on how wisely the scripts are written, how challengers are built, and whether every match feels meaningful. Let's talk challengers, because every tower needs someone climbing up against it. Who are the opponents given enough bite to feel like a threat to Moné's empire? One misstep, if no one feels credible, Moné becomes a perpetual title hoarder, and the system begins to collapse. The art of a long reign is in building the right challenger, the right storyline, the right risk. In some cases, the fastest way to build legend is to give the champion a stumble, then rebound with a dominant comeback. Moné hasn't necessarily done that yet, which means there's space for narrative tension, but also room for miscalculation. Another dimension: Moné's character evolution. She transitions seamlessly into the heel persona, aligning with Mortos, embracing that CEO with belts identity. It's bold and memorable. She's not just a wrestler, she's a brand, an enterprise. That sets her apart from others, and it gives her story flexibility. Boardroom promos, international media, belt celebrations, and global appearances. That kind of layered character can carry a champion beyond matches. But again, execution matters. If it becomes too gimmicky without substance, she risks becoming a spectacle rather than a champion. There's also the business side, knocking loudly. Reportedly, she's commanding top indie appearance fees, and that puts every appearance under a microscope. Why is she there? What title is at stake? What story is being told? Promoters are breathing heavier when a star doubles up their price tag because the audience expects a moment. Moné being everywhere on multiple belts means expectations are sky high. Every appearance matters. Every promo, every title defense, every social media clip builds or undermines her momentum. The upside is enormous. The risk is equally large. And just when you think she's secured it all, she raises the bar again. She's already said publicly she wants to break records. She's chasing the kind of milestone no female wrestler has traditionally attempted: simultaneous titles across multiple promotions. Global domination. She's made ambition her story, but ambition without delay or opposition can feel hollow. If the next few months are just more title wins without new challenges, the narrative might flatten out. What will really define her era is how she handles the pressure, the setbacks, the challengers that make fans believe she could lose. Because when you can lose, winning becomes meaningful again. The next chapter is already looming. She holds dozens of belts. She's traveling. She's appearing in different promotions. But what's next is a critical plot point. Will she defend those titles in high-stakes scenarios? Will she defend internationally? Will she be forced to wrestle long matches, risk major losses, or be put in storylines where the audience doubts her? Because without risk, dominance can feel unearned. And when fans believe a champion might lose, the payoff when she wins becomes massive. If no one can credibly challenge her, we lose the emotional payoff. Let's not forget, this is an era where women's wrestling is more visible and more global than ever. So Moné's run isn't just her story. It's part of a larger story about where wrestling is headed. If she delivers, she could become one of the defining figures, someone future stars point to. If she missteps, critics will say she's the one who overreached. That doesn't mean she fall. It means the legend is being written right now, and the quality of the next chapters will determine how she's remembered. So what should you watch for? First, when and how she defends those belts. Does she wrestle regularly? Does she defend across borders? Does she defend in big-time matches? Second, how she handles defeat or adversity. A flawless machine is impressive, but a champion who overcomes difficulties is unforgettable. Third, whether her character remains dynamic. Being belt collector CEO is fresh now, but what happens when the belts become routine? Will we see a new side of Moné rather than the same celebration every week? Fourth, how her challengers are built up. A champion's legacy is often measured by the caliber of those she beats. If she only beats low-level opponents while holding top belts, the story doesn't sustain. At the end of the day, Mercedes Moné is in a rarefied position. She's already achieved more in a short span than many wrestlers ever dream of. But the summit is not the finish line. It's the vantage point from which you climb higher, or you look down. And right now she's looking down at a field full of challengers, a world full of titles, and an audience asking, what's next? The moment she slips, the audience will see it. The moment she stumbles, the story will pivot. The moment she proves she can survive the biggest tests, the legend will be sealed. So I'll leave you with this. Is Mercedes Moné already the greatest female wrestler of her era, or is she still building toward that title? It's a question only time, and the next belt defense can answer. But one thing's for sure, when her next match happens, the world will be watching not just to see if she wins, but to see how she wins. Because how you defend greatness is just as important as how you claim it.